to welcome all of you to our MedTech panel this afternoon. Thank you for being here. Certainly on behalf of the Mountain View Chamber of Commerce, the City of Mountain View, and our sponsors of the Tech Showcase, we really appreciate all of you being here this evening or afternoon. Long day, sorry. The Tech Showcase got started in 2015, and Tech Showcase was really an opportunity to showcase to the community all the wonderful technology, innovation, entrepreneurship that happens in Mountain View. And this is the 8th year, and we're very proud for the first time to actually have a MedTech panel as part of Tech Showcase. So I think this is going to wrap out the day in a very, very nice way. We have a great panel with us. And to get us started, I'm going to introduce Cecily Murray. Cecily Murray is a healthcare delivery strategist and a Mountain View resident. I had the pleasure of meeting Cecily several years ago in a different community that I worked in, and a very passionate individual in healthcare. She'll take us on this journey with our panelists, and we invite you to be engaged. We have some questions. If we run through these fairly quickly, we'd like to open up to the audience and see if you have any questions for the panelists. So I'm going to turn it over to Cecily and get us going. Cecily.
Thank you. Thank you, John. So I'm an 18-year resident of Mountain View. I could actually throw a rock and hit El Camino Hospital. And as an 18-year resident of Mountain View, all of these organizations and institutions in one way or another have touched my life from the sublime to the profound. I had my children at the hospital, and Stanford has taken care of family members and children of family members for the last 18 years. I've been to the Fogarty Institute. I know people that have innovation. I've known people that have benefited from their technology. So I am really excited to get to be here today to talk to them. I think we're going to hear a lot about how we as residents of this area and also consumers of healthcare benefit from having these organizations present in our community, both because we are here, but also more broadly because we use healthcare. But I also think we're going to get to hear how these organizations and these institutions benefit also from being here and being in these communities with us. And what is unique about Mountain View or Silicon Valley or the Bay Area more broadly that makes organizations like these possible, that allows them to do what they do so well, and that allows them to collaborate to deliver better healthcare in a more timely fashion, more efficiently with better outcomes. So I think that's kind of what we're hoping to explore today. And I would like to start by turning it over. We're going to let each of the panelists introduce themselves and talk about their organizations and what role they play in our society and sort of more broadly. So we're going to start with Allie.
Yeah, great.
You want to switch?
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I do have some slides to share, so we'll wait for those to get up. All right, one more. Thank you. So my name is Allie Gregorian. I'm Chief Alliance Officer at Fogarty Innovation. We are a nonprofit educational incubator supporting early stage innovation. We have been a part of the Mountain View community for the past 16 years, and we are located on the El Camino Hospital campus. Next slide. So we are the world's first fully translational MedTech program. We consider ourselves to be a powerful engine for the invention, development, and deployment of early stage innovation. And like I said, we've been doing this for 16 years and have been extremely, extremely successful at that. Next slide. We are the living legacy of Dr. Thomas Fogarty, world-renowned cardiovascular surgeon, inventor, entrepreneur. You can see here he has over 165 medical device patents, has founded or co-founded over 45 different medtech companies. And, you know, he started the Fogarty Institute for Innovation in 2007 with a vision to spur medical device innovation, improve patient outcomes, and also reduce healthcare costs. And that remains a part of our vision today. Next slide. So here are just a couple highlights. I won't be able to go into too much detail in terms of the programs that we offer, but just a couple highlights to share with you. We have 22 companies in our portfolio at the moment, ranging from women's health, diagnostics, dental, neuromodulation, pediatrics. We have a world-class team of 24 seasoned experts with over 300 years of medical device innovation experience. And our main role, our function is to provide full contact coaching to these companies to help, translate viable ideas and solutions into, productive businesses and solutions for patients. We've been, like I said, pretty good at it. We've helped return over $5.5 billion to investors, and this has been accomplished through acquisitions and IPOs. And along with our incubation and acceleration programs, we believe that educating the entrepreneur on the complexity of taking a device to commercialization is extremely important. So we have a robust education program as well. And obviously local and global alliances. We can't do this without our partners, and we'll be talking a little bit more about that in the discussion. So next slide. So how we do it is we create companies. Like I mentioned, we do this through our incubation and acceleration programs. We educate the next generation of entrepreneurs and innovators. And then we elevate the ecosystem. Given our status as a nonprofit organization, we have the ability to bring together stakeholders from across the ecosystem to help shape and drive innovation. Next slide. So Dr. Thomas Fogarty's vision and his philosophy is that innovation is best learned by doing. So we offer a variety of education, incubation programs that support the development in varying stages of development, rather. So we have, for example, the Invention Accelerator program, where we're partnering really closely with Stanford Medicine and El Camino Health, where we're working with their clinicians and researchers on the ideation side of things. So the super early side of how do you take a concept and maybe turn that into a concept that is realized and put into patient care. Next slide. So, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, but our relationship with El Camino is really, really important. Like I said earlier, we've been on their campus for the past 16 years, and it's very symbiotic, right? Physicians and nurses have first look access at the technologies that we're developing. They can provide their commentary on the device and the development of that product. We also offer Mountain View residents access to some of the clinical trials that are happening at El Camino that are utilizing our devices in their clinical studies. And then lastly, it's great for our companies to have access to the clinicians and some of the programs that El Camino is offering. It helps, shape their strategy and push their development forward. So these are just a couple highlights. And so thank you so much, and I look forward to the discussion. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Deb Moreau. I'm the Chief Information Officer for El Camino Health. I have a lot of slides, so we're going to move quickly. I was used to a clicker, so if you'd move forward a couple slides for me. One more, and one more. I want to talk a little bit about El Camino Health. El Camino Health is a community-based hospital, obviously in Mountain View, and we're also in Los Gatos, and we have grown our clinic presence. You can see we're in Mountain View, Cupertino, Los Gatos, San Jose, and Morgan Hill. When I started 8 years ago, we had 3 physicians in our clinics. Today, we have about 165. So you can see we've really grown dramatically over the last couple of years. We really are realizing that healthcare doesn't happen in the hospital anymore. Healthcare happens in your home and in your community. So we're moving forward with that. Next slide. And as you can see, we are one of the proudest things that we do, and you mentioned that, is that we deliver the most babies in the Bay Area. We deliver the smartest babies in the Bay Area because they're all high-tech people, so I love it. But they always call out when we're not very innovative. And if you see the gentleman in the bed to the right, we actually provide iPads to patients in their bed so that they can go into their medical record while they're there and see their information. So we're really trying to be ahead of the game and making sure that we're treating patients as they expect to be treated. Go ahead, move to the next slide. A little interesting information about us was that we actually built a hospital in 1958. We started the build. It opened in 1961. I'm going to talk a little bit about the fact that we were the first site to implement an electronic health record back in 1971. Lockheed Martin approached us and said, would you develop a medical information system? It's going to be the best. Doctors will never have to write information again. And so we took part of that, and we actually implemented that system in 1972. And that was we're called the grandfather of the electronic health record. So really exciting that we started that way back in the day. We actually built our new hospital. We acquired Los Gatos in 2008, and then in 2009 we built a new hospital. Our hospital was in popular science at that time because we implemented robotics. So really have this energy and interest in innovation. Move to the next slide. And if you move one more. So Mountain View, we offer a full set of services, and I think why Fogarty and El Camino Health have had such a great partnership is that we're small enough to try out new products and systems, but we're complex enough to really try them out. So if you're trying out a new cardiovascular product, we do many heart and vascular procedures every day, very complex. And so we can try out new technology. We can really try it out in a smaller ecosystem and let these entrepreneurs really develop their products. So it's been a really great synergy. You move forward. And then Los Gatos, we have some really interesting opportunities there as well that we're providing care to the community. And if you move forward. Some of the awards that we've gotten, we're not a huge hospital system, but it's been amazing this last year. We were actually one of the top 100 hospitals in the nation identified by Newsweek. We were actually number 95. Pretty amazing that we were able to do that. We also we're one of the first hospitals to have magnet status, which means we celebrate nurses and we make sure that the nursing profession is really performs well and has a good place to do their work. And then we received an A for hospital leapfrog as well as CMS. So these are just some things that we're proud of because, again, not a huge organization, but we really focus on quality and safety. If you want to move to the next slide. And then let's talk a little bit about innovation. I mentioned in 1971 we were the first hospital in the country to have an electronic health record where physicians were actually doing computerized physician order entry. And then we were one of the first hospitals to implement robotics in surgery. So actually the doctor uses a robot to actually perform the surgery. We started that. And then the mitral clip, we did that with Fogarty. We developed that procedure, which is used across the country today, but really exciting that that was started in our community. We use intelligence for our radiation so we can make sure that radiation goes directly where it needs to go and doesn't damage other parts of the body. And then Flow Patch was one of our recent synergies with Fogarty. And if you can imagine what Flow Patch does is sepsis is a really high mortality condition for patients. And then what it means is the patient has an infection and the infection actually takes over the body. And infection is dangerous to the body. And so when a sepsis patient comes in, we want to identify them quickly and we want to treat them. Often the treatment is to give them large amounts of IV fluids to help keep their blood pressure high enough so that they can survive that septic episode. We call that shock. You've probably heard of shock, that you want to prevent that. What Flow Patch does is it allows us to assess, does the patient need extra fluids or not? So we don't overload the patient with fluids and we're able to treat them. And we really like to think about that as personalized care. We want to personalize the care based on the patient. In the past, we just gave all patients the same amount of fluid. This way we can really personalize it to the patient. So it's really been a success with Fogarty. If you move forward, some of the things we're thinking about now with innovation, as we have a benefactor that is investing in innovation with El Camino Health, and we're excited about that. But one of the things that we're thinking about as we go down the innovation journey is we want to solve the problems that we have first. And then we get more and more innovative as we go. Some of the problems that we're solving is we need to automate the work that we do because we know our labor force is shrinking. And so we want to make sure that we are automating things like specimen delivery. We want to help robots navigate the way for patients. So if you arrive in the front door of the hospital, we navigate you with a robot to the place that you want to go. Ambient listening, this is exciting. It's where voice, as a doctor is and a patient are talking, that data goes right into the electronic health record. So no longer is the doctor pointing and picking and clicking, the natural language is going into the electronic health record and it's presenting that information. Also for radiologists, if you know, a radiologist looks at many images as they're trying to determine the condition of the patient. The computer is looking through images and presenting the information to the physician much faster than a human could do. So we're excited about that. Remote patient monitoring, we know that patients should stay in their home setting. So if we can send you home earlier, we want to do that and be able to monitor you in the home setting so you can be in your home and recover versus having to be in the hospital an extra day or two. And then for nurses, we want to give them smartphones and have that to be their tool in the day so that they can talk in it, dictate in it, document in it, scan, all of those things, communicate with physicians, patient families. So it's exciting for us. And then we're using artificial intelligence, that's a big word now, but we're using that to be able to predict what patients are going to have problems in the future. And we then move a team to their room if we detect that they're having problems. We also detect patients that are at risk for falling so that we can prevent a patient from falling and having a bad outcome. Those are some things we're doing. Move ahead. And so some opportunities, if you move ahead to the next slide, is if you all remember, do you remember 2019, the fall of 2019? I was trying to talk our organization into using telehealth and to use virtualized visits. And nobody really wanted to do it at that time. They were like, yeah, why would we do that? We get paid for people coming into the clinic. Why would we want to do virtual visits? I was able to get them to move ahead and pick a vendor. And then what happened in March of 2020? Anybody remember? COVID. And my CEO called me and said, can you stand up a telehealth site tomorrow? We need that like tomorrow. And luckily, I had already been thinking about that, got a vendor in place, and we were ready to go. But if I hadn't done that, that would have been a very painful process. And so really just thinking about, we need to be predicting where we're going in the future, and go where the puck is going, right? Skate to the puck, and really be thinking about where the future is going. So that's some of our challenges. If you move to the next slide. And then, of course, these are our biggest challenges in healthcare. First of all, we want to make sure that we have good access and delivery. Can you get an appointment when you need it? Can you be seen at the right place when you need it? We want to make sure behavioral health. We just built a new behavioral health building. We're one of the only very few healthcare systems in our area to invest in behavioral health. Very, very important. And that building is full because of the need. Chronic conditions such as diabetes and obesity, those are important. And then economic stability. As we think about taking care of patients, do they have food? Do they have housing? Do they have medications? All of those things are important. These are all challenges for us in healthcare that technology can resolve, but we're going to need to find those right partners to help us do that. And then one more or two slides, if you go to the next. We are also very involved with legislation and then having community events. These are some examples. We have a South Asian Heart Center that we focus on, and then also having events to create wellness or promote wellness. And then the last slide is just talking about how we've changed and where we're going. So if you think about engaging consumers with virtual care, I talked about that a minute ago, but do you know that there's no boundaries anymore? I can have a doctor see a patient not in our community. They don't have to be together. We call that asynchronous or synchronous, but they don't have to be in the same room to have a care event, which is exciting with virtual care. We want to have virtual connections with our patients so that they can go home earlier, that they're not readmitted inappropriately. And you know, one of the major I would say conditions today is loneliness. And so if we can connect with patients and make sure that they're doing well and that we're addressing their health conditions and their mental conditions and loneliness, we will probably prevent many health issues in the future. We, as I talked about, remote monitoring, care at home, and then health equity. How do we make sure that we care for all patients equally? And language is a big challenge in our community. We have many, many languages that are spoken in our community, and how do we deal with that and make sure that the patient gets the language and is communicated with appropriately? And then unified communications, that's that connection. How do we have nurses with smartphones being able to talk to their doctors, talk to their patients, patient families, being able to have a family member in New York be part of a patient doctor interaction here in Mountain View. These are all technologies that we're interested in. With AI, it's really considered the new oil. So if you think about oil and the value of oil in the past, data is the new oil in our economics, in our system. And you know that. You see that today. People, you know, you see data being sold. It has value. And so as we think about how do we use the data, not for economics, but how do we use data to improve care, is going to be really important. Virtual reality. If we can put a headset on a patient, they often don't need sedatives before surgery. If we can distract them. So we use distractions therapies to help patients to not have to have the medications and things that might have been needed in the past. And then last, the whole goal is to be predictive versus reactive. When we were in the middle of COVID, we were trying to predict what's going to happen tomorrow. How many patients are we going to have? How many ventilators are we going to need? What is going to happen tomorrow? If we need technology to help us predict. And that's going to be our challenge for the future, is to be able to know tomorrow's going to look like this, because our data tells us that, and we can be prepared. And that's it. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Charlotte Stallworth. I'm Vice President of Business Development and Innovation at Stanford Medicine Children's Health. In this role, thanks, Diana. In this role, I oversee strategic partnerships, so developing relationships with El Camino, other healthcare partners, to help ensure we can provide the level of care needed at various community hospitals, and that's throughout the 13 counties in our region and outside of California as well. And I structure and maintain those relationships. I also oversee our physician relations, where we have teams going out and meeting with community physicians to help them understand the kind of services we can provide at Stanford. And then also, what we're talking about today is help facilitate innovation and technology transfer across Stanford Medicine. So working with our innovative physician scientists, IS, other team members who have ideas, help them understand, you know, if that idea is something new and can be commercialized, or if it's maybe a Me Too product. So really kind of an upfront assessment of those ideas, but then also if we're moving forward, helping with that iterative development of the product, and if there's a therapeutic, of course, there's a path for that as well, or the AI protection, legal protection for a patent or a trademark, and then helping them through that process of marketing it, maybe for a license. And moving forward, you know, our focus at Stanford really is, we're very innovative across our system, but we really want to ensure that those innovations get out to the public and can really help transform lives. So Stanford Medicine, let me say what that is. So we have Stanford Medicine Children's Health, where we're focused on pediatric and maternal health, right? So we provide healthcare for expectant persons. And then also Stanford Medicine Healthcare, where we focus on adult healthcare. And then Stanford University School of Medicine. Those three combined is what we call Stanford Medicine. And just to highlight Stanford Medicine Children's Health, I have a video I'd love to show. I don't have any slides, but I think this video really helps capture innovation and our spirit of innovation at Stanford Medicine. Could you show the video, please?
What would happen if we treated kids like adults? Flights would be delayed indefinitely. Makeovers would be a disaster. And fine dining wouldn't be so fine. At Stanford Medicine Children's Health, we know it's important to treat kids differently. So we built an entire network just for kids, with world-renowned pediatric experts and groundbreaking innovations specifically tailored for kids. Because treating kids like adults is rarely a good idea. Stanford Medicine Children's Health. Access to excellence.
Yeah, I think that's such a cute video, but some of the technology shown there, like Deb spoke about, the distraction therapies and other therapies we use at Stanford Medicine as well. And I think we're always, I want to say pushing the envelope, but we really try to be very creative and thoughtful. And as we look at, the need for innovation, we have, I counted over a dozen different hubs in Stanford Medicine where innovation is happening, right? So that the kind of process I talked about before in the incubation of those technologies. And one of the things that I think COVID kind of brought to light is the need to focus on underserved communities as well. You see inequities in healthcare across the landscape, not just in the United States, but in many places. But we were just talking with John, before we started today, about how certain communities right here in Northern California, very close to us, they don't have their hospital, the hospital is closed down, and then others are, they have lots of hospitals. And so you can kind of see that happening more and more where rural hospitals are closing. So with our innovation, and I'm sure happening at Fogarty and El Camino as well, we really want to think up front about how we think about how this technology will impact all people and how all people can have access to it. So when you're thinking about wearables and digital health and telehealth visits, really have to think about, well, what does it take for a patient to engage with this innovative technology? They need Wi-Fi, or maybe they need a device, and do they have that at home? And I think we as healthcare leaders and leaders in innovation, we really have to think about, do we have a responsibility beyond just healthcare? Is there a responsibility to help provide Wi-Fi? Is there a responsibility to have devices available in a certain place and partner with government, with industry, with tech and others, those asymmetric partnerships, right? So not just healthcare and healthcare, but healthcare and retail, tech and, sports, right? So we really have to be creative and think outside the box. And I think with the advent of AI just like thrust upon us, I think all of you are excited about innovation in healthcare, or you wouldn't be here. And I don't want to say everything now because we're going to get a lot of great questions from Cecily that we'll get to talk about. But there are ways that you all can participate, as consumers of healthcare, but also in the ideation of what the future of healthcare can be. And we'll be talking about how you can have access to us and our systems to participate in that, because that's what we need. We need a diverse viewpoint, and you don't necessarily have to have a background in healthcare to be innovative. Sometimes it's that different perspective. This is what we did in the oil industry. This is what we do in healthcare, in food service or something like that can be applicable to healthcare. So said a lot. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'm really looking forward to the conversation with these brilliant ladies. Thank you.
So I think we'll start with the idea of us in the community as consumers of healthcare, both being local, but also just generally patients, and talk a little bit about what's happening that you're very, very excited about within your individual organizations that you feel is driving, whether it's a specific technology or specific technologies, things that you're seeing that are coming, that are in the pipeline right now or that have been recently implemented, where you're seeing sort of how that is playing out, and also sort of address, I think it's really important, like healthcare is relational. It's about that relationship between your provider and your patient at its heart, right? This is a human endeavor. And so to the extent that technology is helping that, maybe through telehealth and that loneliness thing that Deb was talking about, but not just strictly like, how are heart surgeries getting better or heart outcomes getting better, but how are patients interacting, and is technology helping that or hurting that? What do you think? So why don't we start with, do you want to start with like some of the technologies that Fogarty's working on?
Sure. So I think there's a lot of exciting advancements that's happening in MedTech. We've come quite a ways, right, from the invention of like eyeglasses and the first generation pacemaker. But one area in particular that I'm really, really excited about is imaging and diagnostic tools to detect and diagnose disease, right? So we have a company in our portfolio at the moment, Inspector Health, which is pioneering virtual skin biopsies to detect skin cancer. They're utilizing the latest technologies in imaging to look through and under the skin at a cellular level to determine if cells are normal cells, are they abnormal cells, are they potentially cancerous cells. And so they have the ability to, right, detect early on so that treatment can then be an intervention much sooner than later. This could have a significant impact on our society, right? There's 1 in 5 Americans that will develop skin cancer over their lifetime. And that equates to about 17 million different skin biopsies a year. So just imagine that this type of tool and other tools like this, obviously will help detect cancer sooner, but it will also reduce the need for skin biopsies, and it will ultimately improve workflow efficiencies as well.
How does that get rolled out? When you put something like that out there, how does a hospital like El Camino or Stanford, how do they bring that technology and what does that look like?
Yeah, so it's a really long and tedious process. It really is. There are so many hurdles. This particular company that's in our portfolio right now, they're in the midst of their pivotal trial. So they're pretty far out there in terms of they've made a lot of progress. They're essentially at that end stage of getting this device into patient care. I think it's a matter of, having these conversations with organizations and saying, oh my goodness, we have this really amazing technology. It's already gone through its clinical studies. It's proving to be an effective device. You have to get this into patient care. Your patients will absolutely love this, and it's essential to improve outcomes.
I would say often doctors, physicians will get on board with that and really push it forward. So physicians will come and meet with me and say, want to use this technology, how can we do that? And so having that advocate, that champion is so critical.
Exactly.
I think an advocate is important, and also a process for the hospital to bring those items in. I think, I was just at our PEDS 2040 conference last week with pediatric hospital representatives from all over the world, talking about this, and the entrepreneurs and startups in the audience and others, vendors, want to know, how do I get access to you? So if it's kind of incumbent upon us as the administrators in the hospital to have a front door for those, especially startups and new technologies, to come in and a pathway in, and a way to tell them no thank you early, right? So that you're not wasting their time and wasting time of your team doing, proposals and going back and forth and things like that. So having an early upfront process to say, this aligns with our goals, our visions, meets a need in our hospital, or it does not. And then the path forward, or, the decline, and maybe refer to someone else, but a way to do that. And just on the pediatric side, one of our partners, Children's Mercy in Kansas, is coming up with something called PEDS Marketplace, where you can go and, like, if you just come up with a new device, place it there for others to see and maybe use, and have a way to bring it into their hospital. And I think there could be a way. Of course, there's a lot more innovation on the adult side, but still considering kind of a electronic way to see what's coming out. And of course, there's a lot of competition as well. So nothing is easy. I'm really excited about the many ideas that are out there, right? So one of the things I really try to do is facilitate ways to come together to understand kind of that innovation ecosystem. So the ecosystem at Stanford and the ecosystem outside of Stanford. So giving people information and kind of mentoring and enabling them can go a long way as well.
Yeah, and that's part of being in this community.
Definitely,
right,
yes.
Which we can talk about. But is there something that you've seen that's come out, maybe, Deb, at El Camino Hospital recently? Even, like you talked about like sort of the forced innovation around telemedicine because of COVID. Like, is there anything else that you're seeing that you're seeing implemented now that is really transformative in your opinion? We were talking a little bit about ChatGPT earlier, like friend or foe, right?
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, talk a little bit about what you're seeing.
I think, as I mentioned, data. We have so much data, but we don't use it. We don't harness it, is what we call. So we call it a data lake. We collect all this data in the EMR, but it's not meaningful to us yet. I had a friend that had a history of cancer in her family, and that data was in the electronic health record, but no one acted on it. And so she was diagnosed with cancer later. We could have done things ahead of that of time to really have helped that patient. This is how we use data to predict, to say, you have a history, here's your family history, here's your history of your genomics. How are we going to treat you based on your body type, based on your history? We're going to predict possibly what you're at risk for. We're going to give you ways to prevent that or to reduce that disease, and we're going to help you live with it if you have it. That is where the data is so critical, and we're just beginning to harness it. As I mentioned, we use data right now when we're tracking if a patient's starting to go downhill in the hospital. Our alarms go up, and we send nurses to that room to prevent a bad event from happening. But we need to start preventing bad events in people's lives ahead of time. There's all sorts of things like facial recognition that can detect depression. So on your phone, if that detects that, wouldn't it be great if someone reached out to you and said, do you need some help? We're here to help you. This is where we want to start using data well. If patients are interested, obviously there's a privacy component here. But we want to be able to help people and not be reactive, not wait till the patient comes to us, but to reach out at the right moment.
So when you say we, do you think of that as El Camino's job? Do you think of that as Epic, which is, for those of you who don't know, Epic is
EMR.
like the EMR system that most major hospitals are on across the country? Like, is that a partnership? Like, who does that? When you talk about using data, do you think that's your job at El Camino Hospital for your patients?
I think it's everyone's job.
Okay.
You know, if we think about, we all own the patient. We all own helping the patient, because we're all patients.
Yeah.
We're all humans. How do we help the human? And so I do have really partners that I work with, and I say, I need your help. Can you help us with a certain dilemma? They do. They come to the table and they help us with that. But we all are partnering, Fogarty, bringing solutions to us to help us take great care of patients. So it's just, it is a partnership, and it's important that we're all doing that together.
And patients also need to advocate around their privacy issues and understand how the data is being used. So that's always tricky. Charlotte, what is something that Stanford has done in children's health in particular recently that you think is like sort of emblematic of technology and the direction it's going? Do you have?
Yes, I'm sure we're doing a lot and a lot of piloting as well, bringing those technologies in. I just got an email from my CMIO this morning about another a company that wants to partner with us. My focus mainly is on bringing technology out of Stanford, right? So really, I'm looking at the technologies that we have coming that are developed at Stanford and helping those to go through the right cycle to move out of Stanford. So we do have some really interesting technologies. Talk a little bit about the Chariot program, which is our program that develops VR technologies for use within the hospital for distraction therapies. And those are customized for various clinical procedures. So Chariot team is led by pediatric anesthesiologists, right? And so they understand the point at which kids would typically get anesthesia, which you want to avoid. And so they develop, and it's amazing, develop these virtual environments that kids can be inside. And depending on the procedure, they're designed either to keep the kids still, to make them move a certain body part that the physician needs to move, and for rehab. And we have some amazing partnerships on this side as well. But also the other thing, we're talking about equity and providing tech for other locations. And through a very creative structure with our Office of Technology Licensing, they're able to distribute these devices and software to hospitals around the world, right? So other people have access to this technology. Also developing some simulation training so you can train people at very far away environments with technologies and with the Stanford level of training. It's a pretty amazing technology. You've probably seen that as well. And there are hologram technologies as well. So I think to me, it feels like the future is here, and we're able to, I don't know, like kind of move in the direction that we want to. So this is a really exciting time to be in innovation in healthcare.
Well, I have a personal example with Stanford Children's.
Yeah.
I work a lot with children who are deaf. And you pioneered a program called Baby Chat. And it was telemedicine before telemedicine was a thing, but it was to serve parents and families of kids who could not hear in communities where they had no access to audiology services or speech therapy, and to actually put them on video with the parent and basically help train the parent to take care of their kids' audiological needs. That was, I was on the board of a school, that was 12 or 13 years ago that Stanford Children's was doing that. Back then it was Stanford Children's, yeah. So when we talk about medical technology, what do you think is evolving in terms of patient care? Like how you guys are, like we talked a little bit about telemedicine. Where do you see, what areas of medicine do you see telemedicine being really, really useful? Let's start with Deb, because you talked a little bit about it.
Sure. Well, we're using it in so many ways. There's a limitation of neurologists right now, and so we have stroke patients that come to our emergency department, and we don't have a neurologist on site. So we use video, virtual, to bring a neurologist to see the patient. This physician could be miles away. That physician's able, minutes matter when you're a stroke patient in the emergency department. And so we can do a quick diagnosis in a matter of minutes using the virtual, where if a physician had to drive in, that could be 30 minutes to an hour. So we're using it for teleneurology. We're using it for telepsych. So a patient comes into our emergency department, we want a psychiatrist to be able to talk with them quickly and determine what the best care would be for them. So we use it there. We use it for telelactation, so mothers that need breastfeeding assistance in the middle of the night. We use physicians that are not in this area, they're elsewhere. So many, many uses. I mean, it grows daily of how we can use it more and more effectively. We are partnering with a company where you can actually do a clinic visit using auscultating the breath sounds, listening to the heart, using a device at the patient. We mail to the device and the physician is listening on the other end. So isn't that amazing?
That is amazing.
So just, we're really thinking about how, again, no boundaries anymore. Geographic boundaries really are being broken, and we're able to do things.
There's probably some regulatory framework around
Well,
the
you
geographic.
have to make sure the physician's licensed
Yeah.
in the area, but most physicians, we work through that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Credentialing is fun.
Yeah. I'll just say, kind of going off that, we've recently launched a Teleneo program with our partner at Salinas Valley, really so that our neonatologists at Stanford on campus can see the child at Salinas, and really a technology that we can use in other locations as well. And I think it really helps kind of bridge the distance, right? So the distance is not so important anymore. And I think we're going to see more and more uses of telehealth as, we were talking before about rural hospitals closings and things like that. You're going to have to use remote monitoring and telehealth to serve those patients. And I think as consumers, when everything else in our lives is easier, we're going to want healthcare to be easier. We don't want everything to be a big deal. So we're going to have to kind of get on the bandwagon. And I think we're all there. We're all willing to do that. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about years ago, we all went to the store and bought things, and now has anyone heard of Amazon? And so today, millennials especially expect to do it. I want a doctor visit at lunchtime today. We provide an on-demand where they can schedule a visit, not with their doctor that they know, but it's a doctor, but you can do it at lunch today when you're in your office, and you have a break.
I would imagine some of the biggest resistance to some of this technology is not necessarily from patients, but from providers.
Yes.
Yeah, who are like, I don't want to be available at 9:00 at night, which is why having people in other regions would be helpful. Yeah, no, it's a very predefined work schedule for many, many clinicians. It really is. So let's talk a little bit about how you being in Mountain View, specifically maybe Silicon Valley more broadly, how do you think that informs what you're organizations, what your institutions are able to do, the kind of talent they can access. Like, obviously there's a huge connection here, but how does this environment do that? And how supportive are the local governments? Like, how do you see all of that working together? Because we're fortunate as consumers that we have access to this. We don't, if you live somewhere else in the country, you don't have this kind of quality available in your neighborhood. So how does this make you guys possible, this whole environment?
Yeah, I'll start with that one. I moved here from Texas 8 years ago, and we're talking about being in that space, innovating, and then innovating in this space. And the experience is totally different. In Texas, it's more calling people to come and like partner with you. And here, there's a excess amount of talent, but also an expectation that we're going to be innovative, that the people in this community have ideas and we'll share those ideas and we can move things forward. And I think there's just like an energy, especially at Stanford, for me, there's a huge energy of innovation, of, like I said before, not just creating things, but getting them out and making a difference. And so I really think this environment is conducive to innovation. I'll say, at Stanford, we have our Office of Technology Licensing that supports all of Stanford medicine. And we have technologies that have been created, but have not been spun out, right? So lots of our inventors and innovative physicians and scientists are not interested in starting a company, right? So they'll disclose it, maybe it's patented, and then it's sitting in a portfolio. So, if you're entrepreneurial, people in Mountain View and in Silicon Valley, they want to come in, take a look at those technologies. You can look at them online, right? And decide, I have expertise, or I can move this forward. I see a vision for this. I want to do a startup around this technology. There are ways you can do that. And we did that in Texas as well. But there are a lot of items in the portfolio here at Stanford to consider. So I think there are opportunities. If you have the entrepreneurial spirit, you maybe just don't have the innovation. There are innovations there waiting to be, taken and supported. Yeah.
I'll just echo that comment as well. I like what you said, this environment is conducive for innovation. And the other part of that is that we have created a culture of innovation as well. Silicon Valley is considered one of the largest and best MedTech ecosystems in the world. And so every type of medical technology is being developed in this region. And we're so lucky because we have access to progressive community hospitals. We have access to top academic institutions. And so we are just quite literally in an environment where everyone is wanting to contribute and create and innovate and bring really cutting edge solutions to the forefront.
How do you find most of your companies in your portfolio? How does that happen?
It's a really good question. I mean, for the most part, the companies are coming to us because they have a specific need or they're having specific challenges. Innovation is extremely difficult. It takes a very long time and a lot of money to bring a technology to patient care. So a lot of times our companies will identify a specific area that they need coaching on. That could be clinical studies, that could be regulatory and reimbursement. And so we really work closely with our companies to get them over those hurdles so that we can, ultimately commercialize their product and partner with, great institutions to get those products to patients.
I mean, it's really interesting. Like, between the three of you, you sort of have like this really interesting perspective on healthcare, because I would say, Deb, a lot of what you do is really just trying to get it into people's hands. You're trying to bring in innovative ideas and like have innovative ideas at Stanford dispersed out. And then you're also, you're sort of sitting in the middle of all of that. Do you get to inform each other? Does like a clinician saying like, we have this need, does that ever translate backwards?
Yes,
into
all the time.
So who would a clinician take, like, I have this frustration with a work, what do they do? Do they come to their?
Yeah, so we actually have a research group that clinicians will come and say, I want to do this study because I think, they might have read a hypothesis or come up with it and they want to study it. And so we look at that, and then if it involves devices, like from Fogarty, then we support that and we help them. So they actually try it out in a small pilot. And then if it's successful, then we move it forward with possibly more, into the real world.
Do patients ever bring you ideas? Like, have you ever had anyone suggest something, or it usually comes with an idea from someone?
Anyone can come up with a creative idea and solution. It does not need to be clinicians or engineers. Really, anyone can come up with a really innovative idea. I don't know that a particular individual, has come to the Fogarty Institute and
Do you have someone who can solve this for me, right?
Right. No, but just to go back to what Deb was saying, we do work really closely with some of the physicians and nurses at El Camino. They're on the front line working, and they identify these challenges and workflow issues. And so they are coming to us and saying, hey, what kind of technologies are you guys developing? Because we have this issue right now. Is there something in the pipeline that we can have access to once it's ready for commercialization? And so, we do talk quite a bit with clinicians. They do help inform, our companies and their strategies to move forward.
Oh, I thought COVID was really interesting because I was working with St. Louis Hospital. They are an underserved hospital. The county had just taken them over at that time, and they were really short on resources. And so they sort of reached out to the physicians in the community to say, the surgery centers are shutting down. Can we use your ventilators, from the ambulatory surgery centers? And so there was this call to arms sort of out in the community, and we had engineers from Waymo up here retrofitting masks for CPAP machines so that they wouldn't emit, because one of the things CPAP does is it lets the air out, right? And so you couldn't have that if you have nurses in an intensive care unit. You want to contain those particles, right? So they were retrofitting the CPAP machines at Waymo to work, so they could use CPAP machines for ventilation. So, that's kind of an example. That only can happen here, really. And it was a process that was driven by a guy who works on automated cars at Google. It's the problem solving is so interesting to me.
It is interesting. I think COVID really spurred a lot of rapid innovation across healthcare, right? I think we saw that everywhere. And then with government as well, supporting a lot of things they hadn't supported with telehealth, right?
And
but moving very quickly.
Yeah.
So we showed that it could be done, but then you see government rolling back some of those allowances, right? And kind of putting back the old system back in place. So we really, I think, have to push as healthcare leaders, not just what we're doing at our hospitals, but really government support of innovation and moving forward. We can't stay in this structure that we're in, to me, feels unsustainable for an innovative future. So
It feels old.
it is.
It feels old. It doesn't feel like it's reflective of what we're capable of anymore.
Exactly. So I'd really love to see innovation, as Deb talked about innovating with data and thinking thoughtfully about how that works. I really would like to see innovation in our healthcare, in the business model of healthcare. And I think as you see tech companies and others taking pieces of healthcare, right? Maybe the low-hanging fruit, easy pieces of it, and kind of chisel away at the healthcare that we're used to traditionally, that will kind of maybe be a catalyst for a real disruption and real efficiency and equity in healthcare.
One of the things we discussed before when we all met was we had talked about, if you're somebody who's interested in medical technology, if you're interested in innovation, what advice do you have to people in the community who want to participate in this, either as a consumer, but maybe more importantly as an innovator? What are some opportunities that you think are available? What are your recommendations for what people could do?
Yeah, one of the things I do is I host and put together a lot of events to promote networking within Stanford, but also externally. So I host last year a pop-up pitch competition that we'll do again this fall, where people can come in and pitch their idea. It's only 5 minutes, so it's very fast. But there's also a networking. It's a happy hour, right? So it's a lot of fun and a very relaxed thing. I will invite you now that I know you. Yes. But also we have our innovation showcase that we host every year as well, and those are thought leaders from around the world who can come and talk about innovation. And I've started a innovation office hours, a monthly series, interviewing various innovative leaders across Stanford Medicine, so they can talk about what they do and bring other people into that. And then also an innovation CME series with our university CME office. Last year I did Innovation 101. This year I'm doing Innovation 202, but those are webinars that people can get And then I've also made a pitch to the Boys and Girls Club of Redwood City and East Palo Alto to do an innovation series, with their kids. I think we all have passion for innovation, right? And I have a passion really to help others, move forward with what they're working with and help people understand what the opportunities are, what the processes are. You mentioned nurses, and I'm embarrassed to admit that I think that's the first time we said nurses, and I should have said that as well. Our nurses are super innovative, but sometimes they're not getting the briefings on if you innovate something or you should disclose, get a patent protection, right? Because sometimes things may happen where maybe they're cut out of something that they were involved in. So I think education is important. People need to understand how these processes work and how to get involved. And I'm all about, bringing us all together and continuing and creating those synergies.
Are there new careers coming in medicine, do you
Of
think?
course, yes.
So what would you say those are? I mean, we always think nurse, doctor, right, MA, but there's more. What
Well,
is,
well, I'm actually a nurse.
okay,
So
which is super valuable, I bet,
so
what you
I
do.
started out as a nurse, and I was recruited to change the way we took care of patients in a hospital. And they said, you're going to do bedside computers, and I had no idea what that was all about. And so I learned.
Yeah.
But I love that intersection between the clinician and the technology. So that helped me grow my career. I think, every company has to innovate. And so I think going into a field that you're interested in and then gravitating towards innovation in your company or your career, it's going to be everywhere.
Yeah.
But there are STEM programs where they're really trying with children, kids, being able to create that innovation. And so there's all of us around us, and then mentoring those around you and anyone that's interested, making sure that you guide them on their career path.
What, do you see any new jobs?
Well, I was just going to add to the fact that you don't have, like I said earlier, you do not have to be a clinician. You do not necessarily have to be an engineer to innovate. And we do have a college internship program that does expose college students to the wonderful world of MedTech innovation. And so I saw some young folks in here. And so if there is an interest in getting involved in kind of understanding what are the potential career opportunities, we have a program for that. So would love to share more if anyone's interested.
We have internships
Yes,
as well.
of
I didn't
course,
mention
I
those.
figured.
I forgot to say that. And then our UCSF Stanford PDC, Pediatric Device Consortium, also holds monthly forums where entrepreneurs come and pitch their tech, and they can get advice and mentoring. But also they host a pitch competition each year and provide funding to those winners. So there are so many entry points to work with, I think, each one of us. So if anybody here, wants to know more, I would say feel free to contact us. We would be very happy to work with you.
There's a new field called informatics, and it goes between the clinician and the technology. And so I hire nurses in IT all the time, pharmacists, because their background is so helpful to implement the technology. But that is a field called informatics. It's probably available in most colleges, but it's a great field of really that intersection between the clinician and the
Data
technology.
is everything now, right?
Yeah,
For
it is.
everybody.
Analytics is a great field, data scientist, so many opportunities now for.
And the schools here, I have kids in high school in Mountain View, and I think they do a great job, actually. They bring in a lot of parents who work in the fields. They come in and talk to them about career opportunities. Do we want to open it up? Do people in the audience have questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
So, Stanford Blood Center is working on the distraction technology for blood donation. And I'm wondering, when you come up with a new program like that, who is distributing the technology to the blood centers around the US? Is there an intermediary that does all of it? Or does there have to be a startup that goes and pitches each of the hospitals on using that?
Good question.
No, so I'm not sure about this particular technology you're talking about, but typically we would have a distribution arm. So it could be that if we've developed the technology and there's a startup involved, that there is a distribution company that we're using to distribute it. So we wouldn't like have a different person at each hospital, to do that. So we do try to, as far as letting other hospitals know that that technology is available, we would maybe pitch in certain environments to let people know, and hopefully they would adopt it as well.
Another way to get your product out is there's organizations, so there are groups of CIOs that meet, and vendors will come and show us their technology. So I'm sure there's something for the blood industry where they have get-togethers or networking. So I think there's opportunities to go to those events and share technology as well.
Yes, hi, this is for Ali.
Yeah.
If we design a device for drug delivery, what are the steps involved when you join the incubator for getting, like, how do you help us go through obstacle of adoption by the doctors or get insurance reimbursement or clinical trials?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Without really knowing much about your technology, I wouldn't be able to share too much, but we would obviously have you come in and meet with our expert teams. We have specialists that specialize in like regulatory and clinical, obviously reimbursement as well. And so I think that we would need to just better understand kind of what you've currently done and what are some of the obstacles that you're up against. And, we'd have to work with you individually on that.
Go here.
Telemedicine has been great, but didn't our insurance model put a monkey wrench and try to prevent it happening?
Well, actually, with COVID, you're right. It was lower reimbursement pre-COVID, and then when COVID happened, the reimbursement sort of opened up, if you will. The government was willing to pay for that. They haven't changed that yet. They're starting to talk about not allowing audio visits and just virtual visits, but we haven't seen significant changes yet. We're hoping that won't be the case, that they'll be growing that.
It's a really good point, though, right?
Yeah.
That government support, the
It's
reimbursement
necessary. It's
support of
critical.
innovation,
Yeah.
sometimes
But I think-
those are the hardest people to
I
get
think
over.
the horse is out of the
hill.
barn. I'm not sure you could ever reel that back in too much because it's expectations.
I have another one back here.
Hi, my name is Priya, and first of all, thank you for holding this panel. So I'm on like the innovative side, and I heard a lot about an incubator and like internships and stuff. So I was wondering, how could I get involved? So I've already like started building, and I'm like seeing results, and I'm really interested in just like helping people, and I feel like an incubator would be the next step for me. So yeah, just how can I get more involved?
Awesome. Well, first of all, congratulations. That's amazing. I would just say, so we do have an application process that we do encourage potential companies and entrepreneurs to review and apply. But I'd love to speak with you right after this, and we can talk a little bit more about, what your trajectory looks like and what you're interested in, and if, coming into the incubator is the best next appropriate step for you. Yeah.
Charlotte, you also kind of.
Yes, I would say the exact same thing. Same answer.
Oh, good.
Any other questions?
Yeah, ladies, great panel. I'm actually new to the area. I'm from Texas as well. So hearing you say that, I was like, okay, I'm comfortable now. But yeah, I mean, innovation here is unreal. The networking here that I've seen, I've been here for a month, and I've met Charlie actually over there. I met him at a Safeway. He told me about this, and like we were talking about cake prices. My question for you is, I'm a guy with an entrepreneurial spirit. I'm a fresh college grad. I have a lot of ideation. I'm currently a consultant, but the reason why I'm out here is to meet these people with innovative ideas who can't necessarily talk to these VCs, who can't necessarily market themselves in a way that, really grabs people's attention and sells the vision. I heard you say something about, or I heard you say that literally, if you can't find the innovation, but you have that entrepreneurial spirit, the innovation is there.
Yes.
So what opportunities do you have in terms of a businessman entering the space and working with developers, engineers, to actually jumpstart a business, because I've done it before with on a smaller scale, but I'm very interested in kind of going that route.
Yeah, I commend you for wanting to go that route. I'm a former commercial banker and got into this space, so I think that's very necessary. Typically, the physician or nurse inventors, even IS, are not business people, right? So they need somebody with that spirit to guide them. So if you're interested in starting your own company, I would say, take a look at our site. I think it's otl@stanford.edu or something like that, where you can see the technologies that we have that are available that you could take as a startup or move forward licensed from our OTL. There are also companies and startup companies that are seeking partners to work with them. Let me talk to our people at the PDC to see if there's some that they can think of that you might be a good fit for. If you have a card or something, you could give that to me and we can connect offline.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Other questions?
One in the back.
I think this will be our last question, as I promised an hour of the panelist time, so we'll end. You have the last question.
So I have a higher level question, and I got here late, so apologies if the panel has already addressed it. So I know that we live in a particularly innovative community, but that aside, I feel like generally speaking, hospitals, healthcare, it's an industry that's very slow to change and very resistant to change. And I'm just curious, from the broader perspective, what are some of the biggest resistance areas for hospitals, let's say, to adopt new technology and innovation, aside from presumably needing the technology to be of high maturity with high levels of accuracy?
Yeah, great question. I'll start. It's interesting because reimbursement, we've talked a bit about. If we can't be reimbursed for something, then it's really hard for us to move in that direction. So value-based care is something that we really should move towards. Value-based care means you don't pay per procedure, you're paid for taking health care of someone and keeping them well. The government doesn't reimburse us well for that yet. So it's really hard for us to go in that direction, but it's where we should go. It's where we're going to go. But it's really a tough one right at the moment.
Yeah, it's partially driven by the payers too. It's not really the hospitals that are
Right.
necessarily
Right.
resistant. A
Yeah.
lot of times it's the insurance companies that really, they have all kinds of things that they can do to sort of not pay for something. And so a lot of that drives the responses from the hospitals in terms of what they can do and can't do. So it's an ecosystem
It
that
really
makes
is.
it really difficult.
It is. And then, there's a lot of cultural resistance to some of the changes we'd like to make. Some of it is on the physician side.
Yeah.
Physicians don't want to change. And so as we're saying, you really need to open your schedule up so that when a patient wants an appointment, they can get it, today. And there's a lot of cultural resistance. So I think there's cultural resistance, there's reimbursement, economic challenges that we're having to deal with. But you're right, healthcare needs to move as quickly as retail has to be very customer-centric.
Mm-hmm.
We want to be patient-centric. We're not there yet. We're getting there, but it's a slow move. So
Nothing to add.
I agree. It's the same. Yes.
Well, I think we're done, right? We're getting cut off.
That said, want to thank all of you for being here, and please join me in a round of applause for Deb, Ali, Charlotte, and Cecily. Thank you very much. We invite you to continue the dialogue with them. We would like to get people more out to the lobby, but if you would like to chat with them, feel free to do so. We really appreciate you being here, and on behalf of the city, the chamber, and our sponsors for Tech Showcase, thank you for being here tonight. Have a great night. Thank you.